Welcome to Cairns and the launch of the Law Council of Australia's Rural, Regional and Remote Digital Treechange initiative. My name is Peter Applegarth. I'm a judge of the Supreme Court of Queensland. I pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we gather, either here in person or remotely, and pay my respects to their leaders past, present and emerging. Other speakers will talk to you about the Law Council's Digital Treechange initiative. We're sorry that the illness of the President of the Queensland Law Society, Elizabeth Shearer, means that she can't join us here in person, but she, with many other presidents and officials throughout the nation, join us today. The QLS has been a great supporter of this initiative. The Digital Treechange initiative addresses a critical issue: equal access to justice. It will help lawyers who are thinking about practicing in areas in which more than a quarter of our fellow citizens live. It will also help lawyers currently practicing in those areas to recruit. It aims to overcome the barrier of the unknown. It's a big thing to relocate from a capital city to a remote area based on a hunch of what things will be like. It's also a big thing for a firm to offer a position to someone who they hardly know and who may not fit. We advise clients about due diligence, but this is an innovative way for lawyers to improve their due diligence so they can make more informed decisions. I've got a daughter who, when she was about to graduate from medical school, did a lot of due diligence. As a result, she applied to practice in Cairns because it offered a great balance between hands-on experience and good mentoring, not to mention a great lifestyle. She gained skills and experience that she could not have gained in a bigger hospital in Brisbane. She's not looked back. In fact, she's gone further north and she's now living and working on Thursday Island, enjoying the short walk to work and doing rewarding and challenging work. She said to me the other day, "This is what I always imagined practicing medicine would be like." The same applies to the practice of law. We hope that lawyers aren't consigned to soul-destroying document reviews, repetitive, boring work and long commutes to work. We hope that you can have a legal career, or at least part of a career, that engages you with real people, helping them, doing challenging and personally fulfilling work, being mentored by experienced lawyers who will value what you bring to their practices. I don't know what the legal profession will look like in 20 years. No one, not even Professor Richard Susskind, would know that. But now, more than ever, we need to think in terms of an individual's legal careers, not one linear, predictable career. It may suit you and your loved ones to spend a decade in a region. Like some of my contemporaries, you may decide to go for 5 or 10 years, like it, and stay there for a lifetime. Justice Henry, who's the resident judge here in Cairns, is on leave. He started his legal career in Southport, then moved to North Queensland working as a prosecutor, moving up through the ranks and then at the private bar at which he excelled. He wasn't regarded as just a good regional lawyer. I can tell you that he was regarded by the judges and everyone throughout the legal profession in the state as the best in his field. His career is an example of how it's possible to progress to the peak of the profession while being based outside of a capital city. There are many other examples of transactional lawyers and litigators who've done the same. I'm delighted that one of them can join us today to speak. Judge Tracy Fanton grew up close to Cairns. She graduated from the ANU with honours and pursued a very distinguished career. Honour practiced in many fields, and that's one of the strengths of practicing in the regions. The variety of work and the extension of your skills. She served on many boards, made great community service, including Australian Women Lawyers, the Cairns Community Legal Centre and the Arts Law Centre of Queensland. In 2016, her honour was named the Women Lawyers Association of Queensland Regional Woman Lawyer of the Year. Judge Fanton was appointed a Judge of the District Court of Queensland in October 2017. I'm delighted to invite her to address us.
Thank you, Justice Applegarth. We recognise the Gimoy Walabara Yidinji people as the traditional owners of this place, Gimoy, Cairns. We respect the traditional owners' age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their survival, their living culture, and importantly, their unique role in the life of this region, our region. We acknowledge their elders, past and present, and we recognise that the land we are on is Aboriginal land. I welcome the guests in person and virtual, in particular the Law Council of Australia Chief Executive and other Law Society Chief Executives who may be linking in remotely. I thank the Law Council of Australia for launching its rural and regional remote digital Treechange initiative in Cairns. The importance of recruiting and retaining lawyers to regional and rural areas is one very close to my heart. I have lived experience of it, both as an employee and as an employer. A very long time ago, I returned to Cairns as a solicitor with 4 years post-admission experience after studying in Canberra and working in Sydney and in London. I stayed in the regions. Eventually I became a partner in a local solicitors firm, and in that role I was also involved in recruitment and the struggle to recruit people to regional locations. Those problems faced by legal employers in regional and rural areas to attract and retain lawyers are not new. We know they have existed for decades. In fact, in November 1945, a Brisbane newspaper, The Truth, reported shortage of solicitors and barristers in the north, while there's an overabundance in Brisbane. Some might say that little has changed. There are many reasons for that, of course, far beyond the scope of today's discussion. Some of those, I think, are at the heart of the city-country or rural-urban divide that has existed in Australia since it was colonised. All the research tells us that major cities exert a powerful gravitational pull on the younger and more educated people from the regions, as well as on the majority of new migrants. And larger regional centres such as Cairns also draw people away from the populations of smaller regional or rural towns, which might be in its orbit. Any lawyer who you care to ask who practices in a regional or rural or remote area will also tell you that there is an ingrained intellectual snobbery in Australia about living and working outside the capital cities. Many people hold negative misconceptions about the quality of the work available outside the capitals, and also about the quality of the legal practitioners who choose to live and work in the regions and in rural places. Of course, the lived experience of most lawyers in regional and rural areas tells us otherwise. One of the great joys of my current position is the working relationship I have with an associate each year. And in thinking about what to say briefly today, I've spoken to many of them, as well as to other young lawyers about this issue. They tell me these things, and I'll let their own voices speak for themselves. The best way to break these preconceptions is to physically move people to the regions so they can see for themselves that the coffee tastes the same and the natural attractions are far better. Some of the most attractive elements of regional practice include the opportunities for more client-facing work early on, greater responsibilities within the office, accelerated career progression, and the unique and challenging nature of the work. Another said, what deters job seekers from moving away from the city is not only the type of work available to them in a rural or regional location, but also the social and personal aspects of relocating. It's important for any trial period to allow the employee the opportunity to actually interact with the community in that regional or rural location, socially and professionally, because without that component, they are unlikely to commit to the role at the end of the period. Everyone accepts that working from a virtual office or via audio-visual link will have many benefits. COVID-19 has taught us that, if nothing else. But they also tell me, these young people, that it is important that any program avoid being used as a resume padding exercise for young lawyers who might never intend to make the transition to the regions. Training and then losing a solicitor at the end of a trial is, of course, a very significant drain on a small regional practice. Other policy initiatives, which may well be worth exploring and which are mentioned in the planning, include targeting undergraduate students outside the regions who might be in their penultimate and final years of study. Major firms in the cities can secure talent early on because they offer secure pathways from undergraduate to graduate practice, for example, commercial clerkships that feed into graduate roles. It's difficult to find similar well-advertised secure pathways in regional places, young people tell me, so that may also be something worth considering, as may be the suggestion of a legal version of the bonded medical student program. All, I think, good suggestions and things that show real insight. What the young people tell me is that there is an enormous richness to practice in regional places, and that they are rewarded and challenged by the fact that they often have a great deal more responsibility than they might be in a similar position in a capital city. I'm absolutely delighted that the Law Council of Australia, the peak body for Australian lawyers, has developed this policy initiative, the Remote Digital Treechange, as part of its national strategic plan for rural, remote and regional communities. Any policy response that seeks to improve the rates of recruitment and retention in regional, rural and remote areas is a positive step. It recognises the problem that exists, and I hope it will be the beginning of change. To tell us more about the initiative, we are lucky to be joined in person today by two people who've been involved in it. One is Mark Fenlon, the regional representative on the committee, who is himself from Townsville. And the other, of course, is the President of the Law Council of Australia, Dr. Jacoba Brash, QC. Dr. Brash didn't want me to say anything about her biography, but I'm going to ignore her request. Dr. Brash joined the Law Council of Australia as a director from the Bar Association of Queensland in September 2017, which is where I first met her on Bar Council, where she was an invaluable contributor. In 2018, Dr. Brash was elected to the executive of the LCA and in 2019 became its treasurer. Until her election as president-elect in 2019, Dr. Brash was also juggling many different demanding roles. She was the inaugural chair of the LCA's Domestic and Family Violence Task Force, as well as the inaugural chair of the Australian Bar Association's Access to Justice Committee and the inaugural chair of its Family Law Committee. In her spare time, Dr. Brash is a passionate lover of the Queensland Code and chairs the Queensland Rugby League ASADA Anti-Doping Tribunal, which you can imagine is stimulating and challenging. Dr. Brash was admitted to the Queensland Bar in 2000 and, of course, her practice, which will be well known to most of you, centres on family law, child protection, mental health law, family violence and the slightly unusual addition of customs and excise to that group. Dr. Brash took silk in 2014 and before all of that she had a glittering academic career. She completed a Master's in Law at New York University as a Fulbright Scholar, no less, and received the New York University Graduate Merit Scholarship. She is also one of the few practitioners who has a PhD in law from the University of New South Wales. In 2010, her doctoral thesis concerned what constitutes a fair, independent and impartial trial. As part of her presidency, Dr. Brash has particularly focused on addressing significant issues relating to access to justice in Australia, and for that she is to be commended. Please welcome Dr. Brash.
Thank you. I too acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands on which we're meeting here and across Australia and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Whilst it's a shame we can't all be here today, it's fitting that we're meeting in this virtual way because that's very much what the Treechange initiative is all about. But before I tell you a bit about it, let me thank some guests and acknowledge some other special guests who are here with us or virtually today. First of all, thank you to Justice Peter Applegarth for his opening remarks and making the court available. Thank you, Judge Tracy Fanton. I was blushing as you were saying many of those things about me, but it was marvellous to hear your lived experience because it's those lived experiences we're seeking to further or better connecting people who want a job in law with the regions, rural and remotely. It's very disappointing Queensland Law Society President Elizabeth Shearer was unable to travel with us. She very kindly let me know yesterday she had a cold and didn't think getting on a plane was a good idea, and given she was probably going to be sitting next to me, I said, no, stay put. I would also like to acknowledge the leader of the Far North Queensland Bar, Andrew Philp QC, who's with us. And I told Judge Cope of the Federal Circuit and Family Court yesterday that, I'd invited her to this event and she was pretty rude circuiting off to Brisbane. She sends her apologies. Most importantly, a big thank you to Erin Stubben, who's helped put this together, Taryn Gaffney, who's listening down in the LCA Secretariat, who has worked slavishly on this initiative, and last but not least, Mark Fenlon, who's here today representing the Law Council's expert Rural, Regional and Remote Committee. I'm going to call it RRR from now on in. And the Law Council, of course, stuck in Canberra in lockdown. Listening in as well are co-chairs Joanne Vanderplaat and Crystal Garwood, who co-chair the RRR committee and have all been tireless in their work today. Justice Applegarth mentioned before an experience of his daughter. It's funny he says that because on the weekend I was listening to my daughters. They were squabbling as how unusual teenagers do. I came outside to have a look. They had Apollo 13 and I just happened to come out at the time when that immortal line is said, "Houston, we have a problem." And of course, that then became the journey through inventiveness to get 3 people in a capsule back to Earth. Now, the Law Council's not NASA. We're not in a spaceship. But I thought that's really what this is about. This is getting people through inventiveness to other locations. So to cut to the chase, the Digital Treechange is an opportunity for potential employees to find potential employers in rural, regional and remote locations before they have to make that big commitment. It's a kind of try before you buy process. both for the employer but also for the employee. Before you have to decide, will I change the children's schools? What social network will I have? Judge raised a very good point about can't be CV collecting. So our model is either a 6-week course or a 3-month course, which really is not going to be much to put on your CV if you think you can do it just for job shopping. COVID has, of course, been an awful phenomenon. And what's going on, New South Wales, Victoria, they all have our sympathies. But there have been marvellous opportunities as well. And that's what the Treechange is building on, harnessing what has become new normal for many of us to create, hopefully, an innovative solution to the long-standing recruitment and retention issues within RRR communities. I mean, you all know, I've been coming to Cairns, many of you know I have chambers here. I've been coming here for a long time. I've certainly travelled regionally, rurally and remotely to many courts. The lament of, I can't get staff. And then equally in the cities or uni students that we all deal with, I don't know if I want to move to X. I don't know what it's like. So that's what this process, what this project is about. It, of course, won't solve all problems, but it is a start. In circumstances where 29% of the Australian population live in RRR areas, but we have only 10% of lawyers. So in real terms, just over 8,000 lawyers for about 7 million people. Now, I'm not saying there should be parity, of course they shouldn't. But what that means is there's potential lack of access to justice for people in these communities, an unmet legal need, including in civil, criminal, family law matters, exacerbated by issues, conflict of interest. There's only one solicitor in town and the other side's already seen them. And of course, the huge impact of distances limiting access to legal representation. So what we're aiming to do, in part, of course, as Judge Fenton said, it's only part of an approach. What we're aiming to do through this is increase the number of suitably trained lawyers in RRR communities and then ensure the valuable experience is not lost through continuous attrition. The last thing we want is someone to move, decide it's not for them and leave. So we're giving them, as I said before, the digital Treechange, so each side has the opportunity to work out if the employer is for them and if the firm and the location is for the potential employee. The program has 3 core elements. First of all, a lot will be done online. So the Treechange, a lot, we've learnt that. You'll be working remotely, but for a defined trial period, 6 weeks or 3 months. But there must be one visit, a minimum of one visit to the firm, to the location, and for a period of time, which gives the employee an opportunity to see and feel, and gives the employer an opportunity to size up the person that they may employ. If the parties then after that 6 weeks or 3 months are willing to proceed, then the candidate relocates. They join the RRR workforce. Second, we've drafted a very good set of terms and conditions which will help firms with what they need to do. We also have good guidelines, and if you're in any way interested, look at the Law Council's RRR webpage because we've got resources there and guides. But importantly, so long as the parties comply with the terms and conditions, it's flexible. The firm can deliver this as works for them. I was talking to the president of the Western Australian Law Society about this recently, and she said, look, we don't have district law societies, so we won't have that support. And what she might need, because she's a regional practitioner herself, what might work for a firm and a candidate in Albany mightn't be the same as Mount Isa, but that's perfectly fine. You've got the guiding core principles, the terms and conditions from the Law Council, and then it's a matter for the employee to work out what works best for them. And what works best for them has the greatest chance of getting employees out into the RRR and employees able to recruit. And what's the next most important thing after recruiting? Retaining. The third thing is the digital Treechange. It's a bit of a tongue twister, that one. It differs from other recruitment methods because this is being designed and promoted as a nationally recognised program. So there will be consistency. Flexibility, but in the core design, consistency. So firms will be able to look on the web page, potential employees, look on our web page and identify where are the firms, where are they around Australia that are prepared to give me a go, and for them to give the potential employer a go too. But of course, it's important to note that what we're doing in no way constrains employers from using more traditional or normal or usual recruitment techniques. So, going into something with eyes wide open. If you decide, yep, I love the look of that school, it was great on the weekend, the community spirit was fantastic, yep, we can make a go of this, then chances are it's going to be a successful outcome. It's also hoped, as Judge Fanton highlighted before, the snobbery, the divide, the urban-rural myth. If we can get more people out, at least even trialling RRR employment, you discover, as the judge said, the coffee tastes the same. I don't know, every time I come to Cairns or go to Mount Isa, the water's the same, the coffee's the same. I go to work, court is the same. It's just a different feel of a community. And those of you who know, I have chambers, I've long had chambers here, one in Cairns that I enjoy particularly very much. But through this too, candidates can assure themselves of their future career prospects, opportunities for advancement, and that participating in the legal workforce is a good fit for the candidate to achieve those goals. So you're having a trial. You can talk to your employer about what are the options, where can I go? And very important point made, I think, by Justice Applegarth before, you might actually get more face-to-face time than you would otherwise. You might get to court more often and appear before Judge Lowry, who's with us, or appear before Justice Applegarth when circuiting, or Justice Fanton, than you might otherwise in a big city. But that's another important point too, because if you get yourself into this system, then the world, or Australia literally, is your oyster. You might decide, right, we've done our 5 years one place, where else might we move to? And with, of course, the very important point that bigger cities like Cairns do also themselves detract from those who are more remote or regional. So what will it look like? Firms who participate in the Treechange initiative, they will be displayed on our RRR Law webpage, so candidates know who they can approach about this opportunity. Candidates will contact the firms directly. We're not operating as the middle person, we're operating as the designer of the system, but if people are interested, then they've got to show some initiative. It's not about spoon feeding, it's about creating the opportunity from our perspective, firms knowing about it, but then a candidate who thinks this might be for them, or at least trial it, they can approach the firm about the opportunities, and will do so directly. And as I said before, after the 6-week or 3-month trial period, if it works for everybody, then that person's moving, and moving with their family, who one would assume, if there is family, have been on the journey as well, and this becomes a family decision. Participating firms are supported by a detailed framework of terms and conditions and guidelines, and that will assist them shape their own Treechange. Firms who are looking at this or come on board can download information packs from our webpage, and those who want to sign on can also access an extra level of information from the RRR webpage. We want the Treechange, as in we, the Law Council of Australia, we want the Treechange to become a well-known, trusted model of rural, regional, remote commitment. Through national branding that we can offer and reputation, candidates, I hope, have the confidence that when they see firms advertise digital Treechange positions, it's real, it's meaningful, and it's a possible, marvellous opportunity for a different lifestyle, but also a different change of work. The kind of work that can happen in rural and region is not something we necessarily see or others see in the city. You know, resources, water licensing laws. So it's not just a lifestyle change, it's an opportunity to change focus in the law. Of course, the Treechange does not cannot address all the underlying factors contributing to the shortage of lawyers in the RRR areas. And it will not be suitable for everyone, and it will not be suitable for every law firm. Equally, and something I've been very conscious to draw attention to during this year in my work, as Judge Fanton said, on access to justice, not everybody has access to technology of the variety many of us take for granted. So there will be those who have poor bandwidth, those who are unable to get onto the internet in any reliable way that unfortunately it will not work for. But we're putting our heads together, doing the best we can, ably assisted by the Law Council's RRR community, to look at what can we do for those who are otherwise digitally excluded. It gives me great moment for concern, particularly over this year and last year when we all had to do things by Zoom or Teams or WebEx. What about the digitally poor? We already have those who cannot access justice. It concerns me greatly that going forward we'll not only have those who cannot access justice but those who cannot do so electronically. So that becomes a note to selves in all of this, that access to justice must be real, but we must, when we look at digital platforms, consider those who are not so abled. So I'm very proud to officially launch the Digital Treechange initiative here today, and to do so in my work home away from home in Cairns. I encourage employers, lawyers to explore the Treechange via our webpage, and that will help, I hope, help us improve Australia's access to lawyers in RRR regions, opportunities for employment, opportunities for recruiting and retention. And you know what that does at the end of the day? Ultimately, it improves access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brashko. I acknowledge the presence of Judge Lowry, who's heading back to court, who was able to join us today. Thank you, Judge Fanton, for your insightful contribution. Thank you to all who've made today's possible, from the LCA throughout the nation. Mark Fenlon, who I would have loved to have given a talking part to, but you know where to find him, and he'll be a great source of information. To Erin Stubborn from the court and our court staff. When I was a young barrister, I was appearing in the Court of Appeal, it was then called the Full Court, and I gave the judges a recent decision of the High Court, and one of the presiding judges, a really learned judge, said, "Oh, it's very interesting. This means that the law of Queensland is very similar to the law of Australia." That wasn't a complete joke at the time, because back in those days we had a common law of Queensland, a common law of South Australia. Strangely, we've now got a common law of Australia. We also have a vibrant national legal profession, and it's brilliant that we have the president of that profession launching a national program. Inequality, wherever it exists, is corrosive. Inequality of access to health, education or justice because of where you live is really an evil. It is something we can never tolerate. Thinking about careers in law, I guess a lot of us decided to become lawyers when we read To Kill a Mockingbird when we were aged about 15. We imagined that we'd be like Atticus Finch, defending someone in need. Well, fortunately in this country we don't defend capital cases. But very few of us ever defend cases like that lawyer did. But it's what we aim for. And helping real people in need is a great source of satisfaction, even for those of us who most of our practice was acting for corporations. When you actually acted for a real person, it gave your work and your life real meaning. So this initiative gives people across the nation chances to do that. Can I just say something about mentors? My mentor early in my career had been a professor of law. After he graduated from the University of Queensland, he went to Papua New Guinea. Remote regional, he was dropped in at the deep end and was defending murder cases 1 year out of law school. He then became the author of the leading textbook on criminal law, but probably that experience sharpened his intellect in thinking about criminal law. This program isn't about dropping you in at the deep end. You will have a mentor. But can I say, from my point of view, When I was at the senior bar, mentoring junior lawyers made my practice terrific. It was one of the pleasures of the job. Having bright young associates is the best part of being a judge. So there are people throughout this nation in very remote regional places waiting to meet you, and their satisfaction will be enhanced by having bright young graduates, recent graduates joining them. It's a terrific initiative. No one suggests this is a silver bullet, but it's one part of the armoury of redressing injustice and creating better access to justice throughout the nation. It's great that we have digital literacy, although there may be a digital divide. This is a program that can assist those who can access internet to improve recruitment and retention. I'll just end on this. It's not RRR, but it's time for rest and refreshment. And for those who are present here in Cairns, I'd like you to join us for some refreshment. Can I thank everyone who's been involved? I'm very pleased to have been invited to chair today's event, and the Law Council of Australia can provide further guidance. You know where to find them, and I've dubbed in Mark Finlan as a great source of information. Thank you again, and I'll end the proceedings.